did.
Yeah.
You did.
I'll go home.
Anyway, you did a lot of things.
And how to conserve water. First, a few important matters of business. The emergency exits, hopefully we won't ever need them, but they're right there behind me. The restroom is up the walkway over there. And please turn off your noisy electronic devices before we start. The next couple of forums, September will be the new fire districts and what that means to you. And September. October will be Sea Ranch Family Architects, and November will be the Sea Ranch Connect fiber optics. Randy started out his career at Sea Ranch in 2001, as crew supervisor with the facilities department, moved up to director. Since 2006 has been working as our director of our water works and wastewater works, and dealing with pretty much everything to do with water, from budgets to managing construction to water rights. And everything, essentially everything to do with the water that we value here at Sea Ranch. And please welcome Randy.
Thank you. Okay, everybody knows we're in a drought, right? You know what that means? Bonnie?
Aaron, were you going to ask for general announcements?
We're in general announcements.
Why, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
You get your choice of microphone.
So, I'm Bonnie. You can hear me. Bonnie Flickhouse, Sea Ranch Volunteer Fire Department, along with Randy Burke. And, of course, I wanted to pitch the September forum, and I wanted to pitch two other things to you all had a chance. One of them is next Saturday, August 8th, the Fire Safe Council is sponsoring a community open house at the White Barn. It will be Saturday from 1 to 4, and that's it's not a forum like this, it's not a talk. It's like an open house with a bunch of exhibits and tables, and all of the agencies, pretty much all the agencies on the coast that provide some kind of safety or support service will be there. Fire department, RCMS, Sea Ranch Security, air ambulances, law enforcement, CRC, coastal seniors, Humane Society, all that stuff. We might have an air ambulance there if the weather's good and they're not busy elsewhere. Anyway, it's a good opportunity to learn and ask questions, so I hope you all come. And finally, of course, I'm pitching the subject of next month's forum, our current petition to form an independent fire district. And we're hoping, particularly want to encourage registered voters within the proposed district to sign our petition. If you would like to ask questions about it, or if you'd rather sign a petition in person than mail one in, I'll be here at the Burke. Thank you.
Any others? Thank you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, the drought. On April the 1st, Governor Brown announced a mandatory 25% reduction in water use throughout the state, and particularly honed in on urban water users. The Sea Ranch is a small water system, not an urban water user. An urban water user is classified as 3,000 connections or more. We have 1,859 connections out of how many ever lots we have left after all of the consolidations that have occurred, 2,283. But physically right now we have 1,859 connections. So the requirements that we have at the Sea Ranch through the orders of, well, the PUC and the Water Board is that we must reduce, or attempt to reduce to 25%. They'd like us to reduce to 25%, and if we don't, I don't know how that's going to turn out, but we'll find out in December. So the drought in itself is throughout the state, and I have a little prompt over here, hold on just a second. I picked up this map of it at one of the turnouts up along the Truckee River, and it shows the California water system. It starts up here in Shasta, and the California project and the state water project and the federal water projects, they all end up going back all the way down here. So it's quite a network. And these people that you might have read or might have heard over the last couple of weeks that it's developing every day are being curtailed. In the San Joaquin Sacramento River, they're curtailing 1,400 farmers down there from being able to use now senior water rights. And senior water rights go all the way back to 1914 or even 1903. So they're curtailing certain people on their water use down there. So it's a serious drought, and it's affecting the Central Valley quite a bit. Okay, well, here's San Francisco Bay, here's Lake Tahoe, clear like we're right here, and we don't have anything showing up on this California water map. Another prompt I have here is our water license. This shows the Sea Ranch from the south to the midsection, and from the midsection to the north. Everything within these red lines is our place of use and governed by the state of California through a license, Division of Water Rights, the State Water Resource Control Board. And Reverend Caldwell prepared this. I might have used this in another form to show how we were going to do the Tank 8 project. And this is basically our water distribution and supply system. So it spans almost 10 miles, which is interesting because from the wells to the raw water storage, which is the reservoir, is 11.8 miles of distribution to get to fill that reservoir. So I'll continue. As people in the Central Valley, just thought I'd throw these two pictures in. People in the Central Valley, over the years, have used river water from the project, the California Water Project or the federal project, and have also pumped from wells in the aquifers down there. This picture shows a telephone pole, and the top number there's 1925. That's where the land was in 1925. Down where the little guy's standing is 1977, and that's how much the land has subsided in pumping in that area. But I see this all the time in water classes, but they've never really come about to show you where it is today. However, this guy is 1988 to 2013, 4.8 drop. So that's the effect of what drafting does with wells in certain aquifers, and especially in the Central Valley. So what's it all about? Well, it's the water cycle. It's also known as the hydrologic cycle. You see we have the ocean out here, and the condensation comes up as the air cools. Moisture forms, goes up into the atmosphere, comes down as precipitation, snow melt, runoff. Pretty simple. Ends up going into infiltration, and you get into the groundwater, and you have surface water flows too. The Sea Ranch deals with both surface water and groundwater for its water supply. Groundwater is the initial supplier through the wells, and storage is done up at the reservoir in the north end of the ranch, and that has its own surface water rules for treatment, and that's why it's called surface water, is because of its treatment. Ultimately, it requires filtration, whereas with the water that comes out of the wells, only requires chlorination. So here's the Wall River watershed, and this is the South Fork, which terminates or starts its headwaters up and around Plantation. Comes down and meets right here at Twin Bridges, or what's known as Valley Crossing. And this piece up here, which has its headwaters around Las Lomas and almost to the Warm Springs Dam. This is the Wheatfield Fork of the Wall River. And they combine and have a confluence at Twin Bridges or at Valley Crossing. Our wells are located down approximately a mile to the north of Valley Crossing, and that's our place of diversion. This is Buckeye, which is a tributary, major tributary to the South Fork. This becomes the South Fork of the Wall River, and where we pick up our water is called the South Fork, near the Sea Ranch. This is Rock Pile, and this is Buckeye, and this is the North Fork of the Wall River, which is the North Wall Water Company's jurisdiction. And over here on this side of Mendocino County is the Garcia River. So that's our watershed. We have 161 square miles for picking up water. It is an alluvial, sediment impaired and temperature impaired river. It is not sewer impaired, but it's what's known as the 303D, which says it's been sediment impaired before flow. Within that sediment, there is trapped a tremendous amount of water. And that's where we draw water from when we divert from the river. Okay. Here's two guys that we used to have working for us at the water company. They're doing what's called gauging the river and doing a cross section to determine the flow of the river, because in our water rights, we have certain times we can be taking water out of the river watershed, and those are governed on seasonals. There's several of them. There's a 25 CFS cubic foot per second, a 10 cubic foot per second, and a 5. Currently, we're in a 5 cubic foot per second requirement, so if the river was running at 10 cubic feet per second, we would be drawing water out of the wells most probably at this point in time. But it's not, so we're using the reservoir. And this again is our license map. And if I can expose this up to a little bit larger size, as I said on the wall, at break you can take a look at it, where the red lines are, that's our place of use. And it shows the points of diversion, and when we went for our water rights, this is the map that we locked in as being the map of the place of use with the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Water Rights. So we have the pygmy gauge. Well, the pygmy gauge was rather cumbersome. It's a little gauge that you use here that has a little fluttering propeller in it, and you cross-section the creek and somebody reads it, and you go out and sound this thing, and it's really kind of a pain. It's not something a lot of people use anymore. They end up using more refined, highly technological gauges as compared to this. But what we replaced it with, and this is a picture of one that used to be up on the Wheatfield Fork, this is the USGS gauge. And this was used by the Guala River watershed on the Wheatfield Fork for years. It's been transplanted through work of Kathleen Morgan with the Guala River watershed and Mike Webster of the United States Geological Survey back around, I think 6 or 7 years ago. And that is not the actual box that's there down by the hotspot, but that's what it looks like. I left that one out kind of for a security purpose. What happens is, I'll go back to there, it's pH. If you go to the USGS website, it tags it to a meter, and this is our USGS website number for our well. It's the South Fork well and near the Sea Ranch, California provisional data or data subject to revision. And this is the web page you'll see if you'll type in or go in and punch on a button that shows you a map. When you go to USGS and you look for real-time data, this is on the 27th or 28th of July. It gives me the gauge height, which is 4.16 feet. So from the bottom of the river to the gauge area where there's water flowing, it was about 4.16 feet on the 23rd of July. Comes down, shows you a little graph of what that looks like. Gives you some data in the background here, back to the 16th. And you go down one more and you see this. And it shows that we had a 1.8 cubic feet per second bypass flow. That means water bypassing or flowing by our wells. Those are the numbers that we relied upon when we were operating out of the well system. It comes back down here and has more information. You can go back in here and you can take a look at it and tell you how many square miles. It'll tell you median times. It'll tell you quite a few things on it. We use it mostly for the gauge. And the ability to pump. So from there, at the point of diversion, across from the hot spot on the river, there are 2 wells that were installed, one in 1995 and one in 1996 by Oceanic prior to the sale of the water company to the Sea Ranch Association. This is well number 3. And it shows the wellhead here and some clay valves that operate and release pressures as the operation comes on to being when we start to pump water out of the well. This is well 4. They're both subsurface wells. They're in vaults. One of them is 70 foot away from the edge of the bank cut on the river. And that can change a little bit every once in a while depending upon sediment flow. And the other one is 70 feet to the east of that. And both of them were determined to be under the influence of water flows. So therefore, we had to go after a permit for those to extract water because they're saying they're taking them out of the river. Just so happens that's the way the State Water Resources Control Board evaluated it, and that's the way it is. Okay, so what happens is those wells pump about 2,000 feet to the west to tank number 1, which is a 500,000 gallon tank, which sits over by River Beach. That tank was constructed in 1967 or 68 using what they call the Horton pickle process. It's a steel tank, and it's the tank that takes the water that goes directly from the wells. From that tank, water is distributed, like I said, 11.8 miles all the way to the north end up by the reservoir. And those two tanks are at almost exactly the same elevation. So they equalize. It just so happened that when they built it, that's how it turned out. Or I don't know if they planned it that way, but it's pretty nice it did. So that's a 500,000 gallon tank. And when I show you tank 7, it looks pretty similar. It's a 500,000 gallon tank, and there's 11.8 miles of distribution line that goes up to that tank that communicates from this tank. But along the way, it drops off some passengers. And one of those passengers goes to the Annapolis Booster Pump Station as part of the new Tank 8 project. There are 4 variable frequency drive 20 horsepower motors in this that pump about 600 gallons a minute up to the Tank 8 project, or the Tank 8. Tank 8 is 900,000 gallons, and it's a pre-stressed concrete tank. It was completed last year and the year before. As it goes along, it continues on down the road, and it takes water and booster pumps up through the Deerfield area. There's a pumping station up there. It goes up to this tank. You might have seen it on some of your walks coming from Timber Ridge and Deerfield. It's a 50,000 gallon tank, and it supplies water to the clusters and to Lupine and Foothill and Deerfield. So now it's continuing all the way up. It goes all the way up to the treatment plant. This is another 500,000 gallon tank. This one was built in 1996, 95, 96, under Oceanics direction. So that's the water distribution. If you were just to say, where's my water coming from? It's coming from the wells, it's going into the tanks, it's dropping off some passengers to some supplemental tanks, and that's it. Well, okay, when we have to go out of the river, or when we know we want to store water for going out of the river, we pump at times when the river bypass flows allow us to. And we take water out of this tank. Now remember, we're running out of the wells, so we've got to get the tank 1 set to a certain level, and we've got to get tank 7 set to a certain level. And we're going to go to this little booster pump station right here, and we're going to pump the water out of this tank up to the reservoir. The reservoir is at 98 million when full. It's a 98 million gallon reservoir. It's approximately 26 vertical feet deep. That area that is on top of that water surface is 14 acres. So when it's full, it's 14 acres of flat surface water. It's a bank cut and fill dam. It comes under the jurisdiction of the Division of Water Rights, or excuse me, the Division of Safety of Dams under the State Water Resources Control Board, and has some rules with it. At that point in time, that becomes surface water because it's exposed to the environment. There isn't any runoff that comes into this. There are no streams or creeks that come in, and no debris, and no wood. And it's pretty much a neutral spot to store water where nothing really comes into it that can cause a problem. We do have some migratory fowl that come up there once in a while, but we take care of that in the next process. There's an aerial view of it. I took that picture with Scott Simpson, I think about 8 years ago. It was just after we repaired the dam in 2003. So what happens is it comes back down adjacent to tank number 7. We take it into this filtration plant, and we filter that water. Now that I want to clarify something. It comes from the reservoir into that plant, but not back into the tank, because it's untreated water, so it goes through the filtration system. And when it's filtered, it's sent over to tank number 7 and gone back into distribution. At that point in time, the supply water is now on the north end, whereas before with the wells, it was on the south end. So sometimes we get quality complaints about chlorine taste. Well, when we're off the north end, people in the north call. When we're on the south end, people in the south call. Okay, that's pretty much the water. There was a portion that came about when I was talking to Nancy Scarroll about this program, that we recycle water also on the Sea Ranch. There's approximately 24 to 37 million gallons a year that goes to the golf course in recycled, reclaimed, tertiary treated water. I don't know if it's specified as gray water. Gray water is a little bit, there's clear water, there's gray water, and there's black water. Black water is what you see in this pond. This is the aeration basin that's on the north wastewater treatment plant called Sea Ranch North, or CSA 6. It's owned by Sonoma County Water Agency. It has a joint or tri-party agreement with the golf course, Guala Community Services District, and Sonoma County Water Agency to treat this water and send it to Guala Community Services District, which is just to the north of our reservoir and far enough away to be a clean operation. And we're working on a tri-party agreement right now to take this water and basically shunt it straight up. We've been working on it for a year and a half to shunt it straight up to Guala Community Services District and take it and treat it. Their inflow from Guala, our inflow from Guala, combined to provide water to the golf course as irrigation water. And it's regulated by the state, and it's tertiary, and it's met all compliance issues with tertiary treatment. So it goes to the golf course. The other treatment plant is the central treatment plant, and it is across the street from the White Barn. You might have seen us irrigating the slope out there. It offers the possibility of recycled water if anybody wants to go and attempt to get a permit with Sonoma County Water Agency. And it can be used for dust control purposes or irrigation purposes, as long as the applications are filled out for the proper use. This pond treats to secondary. And let me back up. On the North Treatment Plant, we aren't treating anymore. We're just using that as a collection system. Guala Community Services District is treating from primary, secondary to tertiary. In this plant, we treat to secondary. We filter it, chlorinate it, put it in a storage pond, and irrigate the field between that plant and the stables. Like I say, it offers an availability to somebody who wants to use recycled water if they want to go through the operation with us to get a permit. And as it says here, every drop counts. There's quite a bit of things going on. Oregon, just to go into a couple of things, Oregon has just, the governor has ordered them to reduce their water use by 15%. This was just this last week. July the 28th, that came out. They're having a drought. What had occurred was, pardon me, we had a high pressure zone that laid out off the coast of California. It was about 1,000 miles long, and everything that came in either went far south to us and went up and over. And you'd think it would go into Washington and Oregon. What it did was it shot over, missed a little bit of Idaho, and went down and inundated the southwestern states. And some places, Texas. The latest weather that we had down there in the Southern California as a result of some of that typhoon activity around Mexico, they lost bridges down there. They lost quite a bit of land down there and had quite a few landslides on something that they weren't expecting, of 2 inches of rain in 1 hour. We haven't seen that here for some time. However, we had what we consider a normal rain year this year, but we got it in 2 storms. We got it in November, we got it in February, and everything else was dry. It was interesting though that last year we were forced to get out of the river with the wells in May, and this year we were able to hang on until June because we had a couple little raindrops that came in that raised the river just enough to be above our limitations. And we met the timing right too. It worked out really well. So that's Oregon. Oregon, they're having problems. I was up in British Columbia. They're having problems with the red cedar. They're saying they're not getting enough water up there. So we don't know what's going to happen with the high pressure, although we're hearing new computer models suggest that the current El Nino formation brewing in the Pacific could become the strongest in recorded history. Well, there's a caveat. This came out of somebody's Anderson Valley Advertiser, July the 28th, and it mimics everything else that I'm reading. One of the problems that you have with the El Nino in forecasting is going to be our savior is in over 65 years of monitoring weather, there have been 23 El Nino events and 9 have produced water. So the thing is that NOAA, if you go into NOAA and you look at their prediction center, they're saying we're going to get a lot of rain in January and February. That's their forecast. So that would be a good thing, but then again, Jane always tells me at home, well, Jesus, too much going to be too much. I said, well, let's worry about that when it comes. We'll have to see. I've seen the river. I've seen the river down here at 23,000 cubic feet per second. I've seen it all the way to the bottom of the bridge when it got all to 30,000 cubic feet per second. And it's a high flash flow. Your ground is saturated. You've had 12 inches of rain, and the river comes up very rapidly with an inch of rain, and it can get up to 8,000 cubic feet per second. So a cubic foot of water is 7.48 gallons. And it doesn't take long to figure that, if you have 1,000 cubic feet, that's times 7.48. That's a lot of water going by in an instantaneous second. So part of our interest with what we have with the benefit of having a reservoir is that we have 2 issuances of types of permits. One is a license that allows us to divert 310 acre feet of water from the wells into direct distribution. And the other 2 are 2 permits that allow us to extract 300 acre feet of water into storage for a total of 610 acre feet. So as far as gallons, I had that calculated. I always try to remember what that is. But it's a lot of water for us. Sorry about that. Oh, it's 198 million gallons. Doesn't sound like a lot for a big city, but it's a lot for, it's good enough for us. And we haven't hit our required rates yet by the state that we'd set up when we licensed with diversion because of the kind of the lack of use and high occupancy because of the 2009 crash. We didn't have a lot of people up here. We've had marginal times when people are here and times when they're not. And it hasn't been a consistent growth pattern. There haven't been a lot of newly constructed residences here. So the connections have slowed down quite a bit as what they were in 2005, 2006. So the interesting part about that is that we are the Sea Ranch Water Company and the Sea Ranch Association are basically the only water company on the coast outside of Fort Bragg that has a water storage vehicle for maintaining water supply in dry months and not being in a river. So when I take engineers up there and I show them this spot, they go, "Whoa, you have a reservoir." So it is one of the nicest things to have, and it's an easy thing to fill as long as we monitor it carefully and watch the weather and watch the river flows. So that's our water system, and that's kind of what we do in the recycling side of it. The state has done a couple of things. They have launched a thing yesterday I received off of this. This one, I'll go back to that one. That one's a funny one. They said that in June we exceeded the state of California. The urban water companies have reported, and these could be really big water companies, East Bay Mud, Metropolitan Water District, Cal Water. They exceeded the 25% mandate, so they were up to about 27%, 27.3% savings, or 59.4 billion gallons, despite the hottest June on record. Well, as far as our water use right now, the Sea Ranch achieved a 32% savings in June. And that's, we were looking at 25%. So take based upon the numbers of what we used in 2013, that's what's important here. You're managing this against 2013 and what those were. Well, there's an interesting part about that. Prior to us raising the water rates to get a rate of return to be able to borrow the money to build the Tank A project, water use and production here was about 350,000 gallons a day. with high peaks on the weekends of 750,000 gallons a day. The first water rate increase that we had to increase the rate of return, we went down to about 180,000 gallons a day. Currently, we're about an average of 150,000 overall if you average it through the year. So last week, I took a water reading of the reservoir, and we're at 80 million gallons of storage capacity right now. And I did a per capita calculation, and we're down to 97 gallons per person per day. So we're running at about 11% conservation over what we did in 2013. So I sometimes wonder, 2013 is a skewed number, or it's an artifact because people stopped using water back in 2013, because this is my assumption and my evaluation, is that they stopped using so much water, got more concerned about water leaks and people washing their app suits on the fences and this and that because of the cost of water. So I go back to 2012, and in 2012, the average use was 221,000 gallons a day, and in 2015 it's 142 so far. So we'll see what happens. We have to report the requirements that we had to do, what was necessary for us to do, we were ordered to do by the state, was to limit irrigation and notify on the website and other means irrigation to 2 days a week of ornamental grasses and turfs and vegetation. You don't say anything about vegetable gardens. They also write in those orders how that can be achieved: no more than 10 minutes a day on those 2 days, and drip irrigation should be enforced. Of course, they tell you you can't wash your car without a nozzle, a controllable nozzle. You can't let water run down the streets. You have to fix leaks whenever you find them. Those are inherent in those orders, but what the Sea Ranch Water Company is being enforced to do is to notify everybody 2 days a week, and in November we will report what we have used as compared to 2013 from June to November. And then I went into another website yesterday on the water board, and it said that, well, we'll have to take a look at how that is. Big water users, water theft over in the Central Valley is going to cost somebody $1 million if they can prove they took it. In some cases, it's going to be $10,000 fines for some of these cities. So down in Compton, there's the poor neighborhood of Compton, which is right next door to, I cannot remember the name of the town or the city, but the people were supposed to reduce by 37% because they use so much water. So if they can't get it, they're going to be looking at possibly, that water district's going to be looking at possibly a $10,000 fine and possibly $500 a day. We're going to see how it shakes out. Us, I think we're going to be okay. We're going to probably, I don't know if it's going to allow us to take an average over the months, but June was a pretty good month to take a look at and hit 32%, and I don't know if it can be used cumulatively or not, and they're telling us to wait until November when they tell us how it's all going to happen. But yesterday also what it said is that those people who may be not even getting 1% are going to be the ones that come under the microscope. So I think, possibility of a combination of people knowing about the drought, people fixing leaks. Some of the biggest leak factors out here are running toilets. People walk away, they go away for a month, they flush the toilet on the way out, and they don't know that the valve is stuck. There's 200,000 gallons down the drain, and that's expensive. We've had other types of leaks. We had last year as part of our conservation program, without being told to do it by the state, because last year was all voluntary with the state. We picked up on people who had water leak notices for over 6 months, and there were a list of 12 of them, and with each one of those we found, well, one had a reverse osmosis unit that was leaking, another one had a purge valve on his water heater that was leaking, another one was a toilet. Some people thought they'd hired the contractor and they'd gone out, they told them they had fixed it and repaired it, and it hadn't been done. And so when I kind of cautiously couched the language, we may be forced into an embarrassing situation of having to shut your water off. 6 of those went off the books. The contractors came out, they did what they said they were going to do, and they repaired these things. Another person had an ice maker that ran water continuously, And how we find leaks is part of our automatic meter read program. However, it's limited by only being able to read what happened 24 hours before to tell you if you have a leak. So the way that operates is we drive by at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's recording, it hits a radio, you go along and picks it up. If there's been continuous water use on your meter for 24 hours prior to that second that we go by, it's going to show a leak. It doesn't do us any good to show us leaks that have happened that people have repaired or turned off their faucets. So it's really a matter of watching what's going on within your house. I know at my house we do quite a few things, and we've been able to get it down to 47 gallons per day usage. But I mean that's of course, you know, mellow yellow and all of that. It's also taking, you know, just simple things of taking a 5-gallon bucket, if we can both lift it, under the shower, you know, and some people are putting in automatic water heaters that are flash drive. I mean, they hit the second you turn the water on. You don't waste all that water. Well, not only are we using the water to water the plants, we're using it to feed the birds, because the birds like to come through our neighborhood too. And if I'm out there spraying water, I live in Walhalla. If I'm out there spraying water in a bird fountain that's going all over the ground, somebody's going to call. And I'm going to hear from my friends over there. But there's another site that came out yesterday, which I found kind of interesting, and I tried to go in and use. And it was this compliance report. No, not that one. It's the other one. Back up. You can call in and you can go on this website, savewater.ca.gov, and you can report your neighbor. And if you want to find your water agency, you click here. Well, I went in and I clicked there, and in 2012 I had GIS, GPS, this was the state of our water system was the Sea Ranch Water Company on the coast that showed its limits and its lines of demarcation. And I went in to see it and I hit on it, and it said we were the Salmon Creek Water Company, 223 connections. So it says, well, if you need help, go here. So I sent this email back to them. This was yesterday morning. I sent this email back to them, I need some help. And I sent them the script of what I was getting, and they said, well, you need to change the name of your water company. I'm serious. And so I was talking to this Russell Herrera up there. I just remembered his name, right? He was really good, and last night at almost 6 o'clock, he's telling me, well, just do this, and if we have to, we'll take care of more of it on Monday. And I said, yeah, but what happens if somebody on the Sea Ranch decides to call up and report a neighbor? Will it go to Salmon Creek or whatever? And he said, well, you'll have to go back in and remap your map. So I tried, and it was really kind of hard to do, and I gave up about 6:30 and said, oh, I'm done with that. So I'll continue on this, but this allows you to report to the water board a misuse of water, a waste, and then they in turn take it and either robo it over or they get involved in it physically, and they send you a notice to your water company that you have some violators of water use. So, you know, water is the amazing thing that Frank and I talked about is that it's not so much about, you know, not using the water, it's not wasting it. You know, the waste is really something that you got to watch out for. And every drop counts. And if you don't have it, you lose it, which I've got a little place right here, that another little guy right here that was you see this all over, I see this all over the place. Play your part and be water smart. Save it or do without it. You know, low energy star labeled washing machines. And we went from one that used 23 gallons that uses 7 gallons just by buying it 2 years apart. The thing finally broke down. And we went and got a Samsung, and for some reason it only uses 7 gallons on a full load. Use low flow shower heads. The Sea Ranch has changed all their toilets out, and if we can maintain the shower heads, people don't change them, we can keep low flow shower heads. And I mean, the 2.5 gallons high flow, high pressure, low flow shower head is just as good as a 5 gallon or a 7 gallon head. Use a water shut off nozzle on your hose and mulch around your plants, that holds water in. Monica does a lot of that here, and Dave. Use a broom. You know, I had a thing outside my office for a long time. I had a picture of the broom. It said the 2004 water hose. I mean, people, I don't see a lot of people. I haven't ever seen a lot of people on the Sea Ranch washing the driveways, and I don't see it raw either. Yeah, turn off the sink while scrubbing dishes and pots. You know, we have friends that we go to trips with, and they sit there as they're brushing their teeth and let the water run. Not a good idea. I install new toilets. There's a whole new toilet technology out there. You can get down to 0.8 gallons, and some of them are going almost to full air, where you're only using a pint of water. Yeah, they're expensive. Are they sustainable? Are they good for the environment? Yes. Am I happy with only flushing mine about 4 times a week? Yeah, as long as we don't have guests. I don't know what a 5-minute shower is. My daughter comes up and she takes 20-minute showers. The state has said, yeah, you know, cut it down to 5 minutes. I guess I don't have enough hair to wash. I don't know. And then water, you know, water in sensible times when it's cooler. There's also a rule, I think, if we instituted Rule 14.1 through the PUC, it would mean that we would have to limit a lot more of the activities. Odd and even number streets for odd and even number days. There'd be water cops, there'd be all of this and that. So I really think the Sea Ranch has done a pretty good job without all of that. And it takes an awareness. We have about a 30-point conservation plan that we have tied in with our license. One of the nice things about the Sea Ranch is it isn't landscape intensive. It doesn't have football fields, doesn't have soccer fields. It has a golf course that gets reclaimed water. The one thing about the reclaimed water, some people ask, well, couldn't you use it for something else? Well, when it was formed, you know, back in 1992, there was raw wastewater running all over the ground and wall, as I understand it. And a bunch of people got together. In fact, one of them was a sea rancher, and they got together with Bob Sundstrom and a group of people, and they formed the Wall Community Services District. And about the same time, the back nine of the golf course was going to be built, and they needed a place to put the water, and that was an optimum place. Before that, water was provided from the Sea Ranch Water Company. So we're not doing that now. We haven't provided water to the golf course, domestic water to the golf course, since 2006, I believe, when we got into the water rights issues. And we found out that providing drinking water to the golf course was not considered a beneficial use. And should we supply it to the golf course, we better have a DAMNED good reason why we can't use recyclable. And that was what I was told from the states, and that's what's in the permits. So if we were to sell water to the golf course, we'd have to call them, fax them, email them, and basically go up and say we need to provide water to the golf course. So I don't know how political that could get, but it's not something that we can do, especially in the face of the drought. So reclaimed water, it takes a lot of management. Our water operators work very well with GCSD, Wall Community Services District, and the golf course. And we've been able to take the storage pond and put it into storage for tertiary up at the North Treatment Plant, and at the same time be able to catch rainwater and allow that to be used by the golf course in that 8.3 million gallon pond up there that's storage. So I think we're on the right track. And then again, I gave you the El Nino forecast, so back to that. There you go. Every drop counts. So I'm open for questions, a break, anything you want to do. Yes, sir.
Got a question. Gray water work around our houses. How does Sea Ranch stand on things like trying to externally dump our washing machine water into gray water buckets?
Well, I don't know what the Sea Ranch has to say about that. I don't know what Sea Ranch has to say about that, but I do know what the county does. The county says you need to get a permit, or you need to notify them, and you need to draw a plan for it. Or did we know?
Not for washing machine water.
Not for washing machine water?
No permits required. I'm in the process of trying to do it.
Oh, did you talk to BRMD about that? Because they told me.
Talk to Lisa.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know that over.
If you do shower water, you need a permit.
Shower water, but anything out of the washing machine, no.
No.
And you don't have to show where it's going.
No?
No.
No, you don't.
Okay. Because in the plumbing codes that have come out, it says that you have to file something with the city or the agency that has jurisdiction over you. So I don't know. I don't want to get into it. I don't know. That's what I've been told. I know in Walla I'm supposed to file a plan where it goes. That's Mendocino County. I know that when people were talking about doing gray water systems, I talked to PRD and they had said they had no permit applications and the permit was about $953. And in some cases it takes a septic tank system, but they've gone now to rock catchment basins and chips and mulch to be able to distribute that, and you don't have to go into the heavy permit process of putting it into a septic tank. That's for the washing machines. That's what I was told by PRMD. But a lot of things have changed down there, but it still follows Uniform Plumbing Code. And the plumbing code says that you check with the agency. So in this case, it may be the agency of DCM. But as far as the water, as far as the association, I don't know what stand we take on that. I know that if somebody were to ask me, I'd say you might want to call PRD just to make sure. Because it could become a public health nuisance. It could trap a mosquito larva, it could do this, it could do that. Yes, sir.
Can people use the microphone?
Yes. Can you go up the microphone?
The microphone is right.
Whoever wants to go first.
So our lot is up in 35E, 29, near the golf course on Forecastle or Forecastle. And there's a big hole in the ground just northwest of our property. It fills up with water in the winter, or at least it gets some water collected in the winter. What's the story on that, and is it used for anything, or is it just a catch basin?
That's a good question. Prior to the North Treatment Plant, or Sea Ranch North, or CSA 6, across from the golf course entrance, the way that the water was treated, it was treated to a secondary state, and it was sent out to that hole in the ground, which is known as the percolation pond.
Oh, okay.
So it's porous, and every time it was done, they had to monitor for nitrates and other chemicals. There's some monitoring wells down around there. The Sea Ranch has the permission and permit in its waste discharge requirement through Sonoma County Water Agency and the State of California Regional Board to dump down there, but they have to seek authorization. So when things would get hot and heavy after the building of GCSD, for instance, we got inundation with a lot of rain and a lot of infiltration, we would go to the state and we would ask them for authorization to go to that pond. So what you've been seeing it being filled with in the last year or two has just been rainwater. It sits there and then it perks down. It's a viable aquifer source, and not aquifer, but it dumps very fast. It's very porous, and nobody really knows where it goes, right? So I mean, there have been some geologists that told me it goes over to the rock face in the estuary. Some of them say it just goes out into the ocean. I don't know, but the water has been treated, and the permit was to allow that, and the only way you can dump it into that is to have wastewater of a certain quality. So that's what that pond is for.
Thank you.
Yes.
What strength earthquakes can our water tanks withstand?
Well, the recent tank we just constructed to the latest standards could probably take the 7.8. Tank 7 was constructed in 1996, almost to Northridge standards. So its seismicity is just, I don't know exactly what seismicity that is. I do know that tank 8 was set for, being an active fall condition with San Andreas. It happens to be the farthest away tank from any San Andreas fault of all of them, although it's a pre-step. The way it was constructed was to withstand anything pretty much that San Andreas could offer. Tank number 6 is not anchored. It is not an anchored tank. And tank number 1 is not an anchored tank.
Why not?
They weren't built that way, and to anchor them would cost a lot of money. So what we've done is when we built tank 8, we made it redundant to tank 1 should tank 1 fall out of service. And we have a bypass line that we're going to install around that tank that should supply us from the wells up to tank 8. So tank 8 has a redundancy to tank 1. Tank 7 is anchored, tank 6 is not, and tank 1 is not. But, just in the studies that we've done, if you had a massive earthquake, they could elephant foot, they could split, they could walk off site. So we have, through the Emergency Water Task Force, taken a look at certain storage feasibilities in certain piping to put around these tanks. Tank one, we will be putting a bypass pipe around it, so that if that tank happens to go out of service, we can still service the main. So that's why not? Well, there's money, money in the reconstruction. We may be looking forward in the 30-year plan and in the capital improvement plan, doing some changes to tank 6. Tank 1, what we came up with was building a bypass line around it that would supply everything else. Questions? Yes, sir.
Just going back to the rainwater issue, I have basically the same question about rainwater collection. And when I go away for a week or so, I like to shut the supply off in my house. But I still want to be able to water my courtyard with, just drips. So what I've got is what I've started to do is fill a 55-gallon blue barrel from the faucet. And then when I shut the water to the house off, I have a little pump on a timer which still operates the drips when I'm gone. But I'd sure like to be able to fill that from, in the winter at least, with rainwater. So what are the issues with that?
Well, I'm not your design person, but I'll tell you from my experience, kind of looking at it, anything that's,
Not for drinking, just for
right, anything outside out of mind, the parking area, the garage area, you have to have some type of gutter affair coming off of the roof. And in some cases, I've seen more gutters recently than I saw before, so some people are guttering their roof line. So at my house, I have a gutter, I have a hose that goes to a tank like you're saying. If I need to, I pump it, but basically I use gravity to water everything. So yeah, as long as it's not sitting, I think, you'd have to check with DCEM. But I think as long as you don't see it from the street, and it doesn't become an eyesore. And as long as it's not tied into the rest of your water system, there's an air gap there, you don't have any problem with the cross connection. And that's one of the things that people have to understand. If you do this type of thing and you put pressure behind it and it's anyway tied into your water system, Randy will be coming out and saying you need to put an RP device on your service, which gets serviced every year and reported to the state. So you don't cross connect and put water back into the system that isn't sanitized or disinfected or safe.
The camouflage issue for the blue barrels is a bit of it. Painting them gray is difficult because the gray paint doesn't really stick. But I'm working on that.
Are these barrels covered? Are they covered? Are they open?
Well, some of them are covered. Some of them just have a rain spout that goes right into a bunghole that's on the top, and some of them aren't. When I was in England, I saw all sorts of different types. They had wooden barrels, and they had ones with the holes on the top, and they had the ones that were just fully open. And people would actually, this turned British, and excuse me. I've got one of the audience here. They'd reach in with a bucket and take it out to use it for their watering.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and you can use gravity too, but I myself don't. As a water conservation interest for myself, is I can't promulgate what you could use or couldn't use. I mean, it's the question about the shower water and that. I think I defer back first to the design compliance environmental management. But I was under the impression through the Uniform Plumbing Code that you had to go through at least a first initial talk with PRMD, and you never know how that might turn out going to an agency like that, and they say, well, you have to have a permit for this and this and that. I don't know. So it's establishing, like I go back to the plumbing code, and the plumbing code says, well, you need to notify the agency, and that's a 2013 plumbing code. So, yes.
Is 97 gallons per person a day or less?
Well, what we gauged this on when we did our water rights issues, and Debbie was there when we were, and Frank was there. We took a look at a community that had pretty much the same type of weather and water use, and that was Pacifica. The engineers and us took a look at that. And they were anywhere from 107 to 120 gallons because of the climate and because of the nature of the landscape and such. So what we figured to be is 107 to 120 gallons is what we we have based our water balance on at full build out. So our water balance and our water right sits at 65% full-time occupancy at 100% build out, and we have enough facilities to be fulfilled by the license. If it goes any further than that, and you can't get the water numbers down as build out is achieved, then severe rationing, part of the licenses, severe rationing efforts will be taken into effect and into account. So a goal of 97 isn't really high in my mind because it was a weekend that pumped that thing up. I mean, there was a 420,000 gallon day, there was a 385,000 gallon day, back to back, and then everybody did their laundry on Monday. So there were 3 days in there that bumped that up. And what I do is I do a calculation based upon the number of connections, and that actually was about 135 gallons per connection. But how many people are in each house? And based upon a census number, we've picked at 1.3 people being in the house. Whereas down in the Bay Area, maybe 2.8 or 4.2. Or in Sacramento, maybe 3.6 people. They base that off of census. So I'm satisfied that you know, the trend is such that it goes up, it spikes a little bit, and then it goes back down. I mean, I'm satisfied in watching it, that it isn't just climbing, it just doesn't continue to climb. And there were a couple of weeks in June that I wasn't here that were low production weeks. So the lows will bring the highs down, but too many highs will bring the lows up, and you end up with a problem of how many gallons per day. But what is it, you know, what is it that the World Health Organization, you know, 10 gallons, some people say 50 gallons. They were limiting the people in Willits last year on a voluntary to 50 gallons. And they started that, I don't know how long they kept it going, but there was a lot of outcry that 50 gallons wasn't enough per person. So what do? I mean, you have that line to cross. Do I let my garden die, or do I supply the water I need for my health and sanitation benefits? That's the crux that I can't answer for you, but that's what we all have to face. And if the snowpack, which hasn't happened, I mean, Shasta is down, what was it, 40%? Oroville's almost down there too. Warm Springs is about 70%, that's Sonoma County. Huntington Reservoir, which I visited in 1958, is completely dry. Lake Mendocino is drying up. And there just isn't the snowpack that they expect right now to be dumping this water into these reservoirs. So if we get an El Nino and it's really warm, we're going to get a lot of water, but we're not going to get a lot of snow. So I mean, that's a good possibility if they're warm storms. They're just not going to give us a snowpack. Thus, Governor Brown and several other people, I think Feinstein's not in the state, but she's up there with the feds and everybody, are talking about more storage monies being allocated. And part of that Proposition 1 from Jerry Brown was to build more height on the Shasta Reservoir and do something over in Williams and another one down in Fresno. And the talk continues about how much more storage they need in the state. But right now the snowpack isn't there for the rest of the state. And Lake Mead's down to its lowest point since it was filled. And next year they may have to curtail a whole bunch of people in Southern California to get water out of Lake Mead. So, you know, they're taking a look at what's coming out of the snowpack out of the Rockies in those areas to what fills Lake Powell in the next week. And they'll be able to make recommendations about how Lake Mead will get filled up above from Lake Powell. This just continues on and on and on. This is not a regional problem, it's a statewide problem. And it also goes regional state, but it isn't just a region, county to county. It's big, and it affects us all. So that in itself, you can take a real-time snapshot and say, okay, here's where we are. And thank the gods for having a reservoir up on top of the hill. You know, I don't want to go on record as saying, Frankenstein, I don't, but I want to go on record as saying that there's unlimited water in the Wallow River, but the watershed up there at 161 square miles of being alluvial fill, I mean, it's Grand Canyon or it's Solid Canyon, Bedrock Canyon, all the way to the bottom. And when they did the bents or the caissons for the twin bridges, they had to go 90 feet to hit bedrock. So between that bedrock and the top of that river, there's water trapped in there. Roy Austin and Tom Cochran did a study way back when, that went on the record in the Utilities Committee, that said you could pump there for years and years and years, and probably drop the basin 1/4 of an inch. I don't know how that would be affected if we don't get more rain. I don't know, you know, it's all connected. You've got to have more go in, you should take more out. I got to also say that the water down there is very good quality. Our raw water supply is very good. Our water treatment processes are pretty simple compared to others because we don't have a lot of organics and things in our water. So it helps out a lot. It makes our job a lot easier as water treatment operators. Yes, sir. That's fine.
Freddie, as you collect data, is it possible to differentiate between residence use and rental use?
We can. That'd be an exercise that I started to do with our financial person, Mary, but it would take a time, it takes time to be able to break that out. And so what I have to do is I have to take each meter reading on residential and each on commercial, and I've done that once, and it takes about 3 days to kick out all the data and come to. So we can, but you know, when you take a look at, you've only got 30 commercial customers. Right now, it's just across the board average of how many connections you have. I do know that we had a major leak up at the county parks. We've been working with county parks for some time. They've been great, and they're now going to install a new meter. It was a problem of, one, you're wasting water, and two, it's costing you a lot of money. They're going to separate the water line. They have a water line over on Leeward that takes them all the way down to the campground. So when Zanino or Mason are in their residents up there, and the people down there shower at the campground, they don't have any water in their shower. Same with Sioux. I mean, so we're going to give them another connection on the other side. We sold them another meter. We're going to make a new connection on that. That's just one instance of a commercial waste that we can control. There's another commercial site, and that's the Cal Fire. And we used to get leak reports on Cal Fire all the time. One of them they found it was our ice machine. You know, it just slowly runs. So Shelley and I got that figured out. But yes, we can break it out, but I haven't gone that route yet.
I wasn't meaning commercial. The rental part of the houses.
Oh, rental, yeah, you can break the rental units out. We have the software to do that. I just haven't done it.
I have a question, going back to the very beginning. How many feet San Joaquin Valley dropped? 1925?
4.8. Oh, there? I don't know how many feet that was. That was a 45-foot pole. So it probably dropped 35 feet. That was 1977, and I haven't seen that pole again. I got that off of LA Times news site. The LA Times has just been great. You go to the Circle of Blue or you go to Brown and Caldwell's website, you pick up these articles every day and you just keep reading more and more, and they throw these pictures in. Never seen that pole again. They probably cut it down. But then the other one was what, 11 years, and it was 4.8 feet. So there's subsidence, and the one thing that's a problem about that, I was telling Aaron, and I told some other people, you know, if you deplete an aquifer, you know, they're talking about recharging with the rains, they're going to recharge this and that. If you deplete an aquifer that has the lithology or the stratigraphy or the rock composition that allows it to collapse, you can't pump it back up.
Right. It's not like a tire.
So, you know, down here in the aquifer, you don't have that compression, and we're not. The pressure on this river is pretty light by comparison. And one question nobody's asked is, what happens if somebody finds out we got a really good source of supply up here and they want to come up and take it? Well, I guess we'll fight that one, won't we? I don't know. You know, because this is a really quiet area up here, and we're pretty well unknown.
Well, remember when they were gonna bring down the big plastic
Oh, yeah.
bags? We were all ready to line up on the bluffs with 22s. It was gonna be fun.
I heard somebody had a mortar they were going to send that way. Yeah, that was David, and he was from Alaska. You know, on this video I saw him called Blue, and he's talking about the water bags, and that was insane. They were going to come in and do all of this and do all of that. And then I guess he went up to some place in Humboldt, and he was going to tap off out of there, and they ran him out of there too. And so some people say, I don't know what the effect is, but some people say, let's grab all this water before it goes out to the ocean. That's not going to have an effect. Okay, let's go to desal. Let's just take that into desalination. Carlsbad's going to spend $1 billion on a new plant down there. Santa Barbara's gonna pump in 55 million on the one that they had that they mothballed back in 77 or 92 drought. So desal for that Carlsbad, it's gonna serve 110,000 customers. So you have to have a tremendous amount of power, You're into almost 10 cents a gallon when you get it optimized. You can buy a desal plant that you can tow behind your truck just like they did in Iraq and everywhere else. And you can put it out here and it's about $1 a gallon. But you have the environmental consequences of your draft, what are you disturbing? And you have the environmental consequences of your salt deposition, where are you gonna put it?
In that big hole up there.
That's all over there by Forecastle. So, you know, and Feinstein has put in some things in this latest bill that she's been writing, and I was reading yesterday, that they're looking more at desal. They say the water supply's out. So I always thought when this drought hit on April the 1st, one of the first things people would jump on the bandwagon to was desal. And it's just now starting to come about because it's getting more and more dire. Like I say, there's no snowpack. There's no rising of the Shasta Reservoir. So desal is an operation whereby you take the salt water and it goes through reverse osmosis. And it's viable to do. You have to keep the plant running, or when you go back in out of mothball, you have to spend a lot of money to fix it. But it is an option. Is it an option for us at the coast? No, I don't think so. If we manage these areas over here, okay. I can tell you this on the watershed. I was telling Aaron this, and if I go down and I sound from that wellhead, if I sound down with a sounder, it's a little device that has a beeper on it. And when it catches spontaneous potential or it connects through water, it goes beep. I go and I sound that. Right now, it'll be 12 feet. The water level will be 12 foot from the head. Okay, if we run that well, 6 months, 7 months, okay, and I shut it off and I sound it, by the time I get the sounder down, it's going to be 12 feet. So the water level, now mind you, from that level down to the river is about 12 feet. So you don't see it in the river, but it's there in the gravel pack. So I'm not too concerned about that watershed dropping right now in monitoring that, but we do keep an eye on it. And I want to let you know the pumps don't pump continuously. In part of the license, they have a cubic foot per second extraction rate that's really low, but they allow you to take it over a 30-day period. So one pump will be on. When we're filling the reservoir, we'll do a lead lag operation. So they'll both be on for a little while, and one will kick out, one will kick on. And it's all controlled by the levels we set up at tank 7. Now we have a SCADA system. We're able to control this even more. And even with the SCADA system, we're able to show more conservation effort because we're faster on certain things that happen within the system. The water company makes every attempt to repair leaks as fast as we find them. Some cities wait months. You know, so there was a guy down on Long Creek in the 80s. It was another 92. He had a leak in front of his yard, and he knew it was this East Bay transmission line, 72-inch pipe from his house, and he called and complained. And he did a garden around it. Had a little string going around and everything. Had all sorts of little frogs and things going on in it. And they went and finally repaired it. And his garden dried up, and he sued it. So, you know, I mean, there's all... Come on over to the office, there's all sorts of stories we can tell you. Yes, sir.
How often, though, how do you do the reporting of the extractions to the state?
We do those on an annual basis. I turn in a report. They require them usually by July the 1st of the following year. And so it's just a matter of what we do is we monitor it during the year so we make sure we're okay. And then at the end of the year, we go in electronically. I pull up my license number or report on that. I pull up the 2 permit numbers and report on that. And so it's, you know, we upload pictures to it. And to tell you how to get to that website, the only way I know how is through my own passwords. But I've tried to go in and try to find our license, and I can spend hours. I know it's there, but it's just, I probably have to go find Sarah, our IT person, to help me out. But I do it through the license and my passwords that I've given.
Could you just type in those numbers? You don't have to provide any other evidence?
Oh, we just type in the numbers. We have to keep all the data sheets on file for 5 years at least. So yeah, it's, anybody who wants to take a look at it can, they'll match. You know, it's just, you're looking at totals and you're looking at extraction rates. So, yeah, that's how we do that. And we do the same thing with the wastewater, and do that on a monthly basis. The state that hasn't required us to do the water reporting on a monthly basis. However, they're requiring some urban water companies to report on a monthly basis now because they're in such a critical state and they have too high a use already at a baseline. So yeah, so far we've had no problems. Doing pretty good. Yes.
Over the course of a normal rainy winter season, does the rain falling from the sky make any appreciable difference on the level of storage in the reservoir?
Well, you can say an inch for an inch. You know, the thing is that reservoir is not a square box. So you get an inch of rain, the reservoir will come up maybe 0.04 of a foot, about, you know, half an inch, because the reservoir is at 2.5 to 1. So yes, I like it when it rains because it does raise the reservoir, because what comes 14 acres, what comes out of the sky is what you get in the reservoir, and it does show, you know, as compared to evaporation. It's better than evaporation. It gets the rain. Yeah. So yes. There's no runoff into that reservoir.
How deep is that?
That reservoir is 26 foot deep from the center down to the bottom. To get there from the side, though, it's about 72 feet because it's at a 2.5 to 1. So they increase the volume by increasing the slope. So yeah, it's 26 foot deep, and right now it's 22. That's full, it's 26. Yeah. It takes about, when we go to fill that reservoir, and it's down to, we've had it down to 25%. It takes about 2.5 months to fill. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just as a point of curiosity, if it weren't for the statewide mandate, would there actually be any local reason in terms of just the local water supply to curtail usage here?
Well, the 30 items we have in the conservation with our license, yes. I mean, we aren't going to go tell you wastewater.
No, I know.
You know, so yeah, there'd be a reason. There could be several reasons. There could be a reason I don't want to spend so much money on my water bill. That's one. The other one is what do I really need it for? That's a good question, but I don't have a full answer for it. But I do know, like I said, the wasting is the thing that we get worried about. I had a guy come in and say, I've told the story before, I had a guy come in and say he flushed the toilet and he got a bill for 440,000 gallons. And I said, it was over 2 months. That was back when we were reading these meters by hand. And I said, oh really? Well, where is this? And he said, well, I'm a caretaker and I don't want the owners to be responsible for it. And I said, well, what happened? So I flushed the toilet, I walked out and forgot about it. Didn't go back, came back, the toilet's running. Okay, so I said, well, where do you live? And he said, why does that matter? I said, well, where's the house? And he told me, I said, well, I'm going to go out and check your septic tank out because there's a reason you don't want to overload your septic tank. So, you know, on a holistic approach, yeah, there's a reason. And there's another reason that if you use it, you may not have it. But if we were in a total, you know, it changes. I was in England and it totally changes because it's raining over there while I was over there. And they're saying, oh, well, we don't really have a problem here. But then you talk to some water operators and people over there and they say, well, we haven't had as much rain as we used to have. So if we were in a rainforest, would there be any reason? I'll leave that one up to you. I mean, in the years in 2006, 2005, I mean, I've seen it just rain like rain, you know. 50, 60 inches of rain comes in off the coast, you batten down the hatch, you sharpen your chainsaw, and you try to get to work the next morning. You know, and this last year just wasn't that way. We got a lot of rain in a very short period of time. If you could extend that over time, would there be any reason? Well, we don't have any more storage. Once your storage capacity is met and you're able to work out of the wells, logically, I wouldn't think there would be a reason that you have to save water if it continued to rain. Okay? The one thing that you want to remember is that one of the few, or one of the many things that goes along with water here is fire protection. And so, you know, I work in the fire department, I'm a volunteer firefighter, I'm a firefighter, and I work with Bonnie. You know, it's that we have that supply, and that now, since we've done the Tank 8 project, we have pressures that meet firefighting flows. We're in really good shape. Do I relax at night knowing that I got a reservoir full of water? Sometimes I don't. When I see a lot of cars driving out here erratically, I know they might get a fire hydrant, and we got a lot of problems. So it's a fragile system in itself because it depends on how fast you respond to the incident as far as water leaks. I don't know, I went to a water blessing with somebody over in Point Arena one time, and I was really amazed because it came out to somebody said I was a hippie because I went to it. I went to it, I said, you know, when you don't have it, you don't have it. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have water. All of us wouldn't be here if we didn't have water. And we share one thing in common, 70% or more of our bodies are full of water. So, based on that, take a look at the places like McFarland down around Bakersfield that have water, but it's contaminated, they have birth defects, they have all of that. And, you know that that's an area that probably shouldn't have been developed at all, and all the chemical contamination and this and that. They have to have bottled water. They're living a third world life down there. So, not to make it sound really bad, but we aren't there yet, and I hope we don't get there. Any others? Yes, Steve?
Can the water company pay its bills with all the cuts?
Well, with all the cuts,
Cuts in use.
with all the resultant cuts that if they affect themselves, but with a week like last week, yeah. I mean, our revenues are streaming along okay.
We took on a big debt.
Yeah, we did. And we're sitting there okay. I've read the reports, I've talked to Frank, watched what Drew's done, and we're staying ahead of the curve, and we're keeping our budget down because we're saving on expenses. That is the double-edged sword. We tell you to, you know, I put that in the Bulletin article last month, you know, the double-edged sword is you tell people to conserve, but on the same token, you know, you may end up raising rates, and we're not at that point yet. So I think we'll stay out of it. One of the things, even though we try to get the 25%, and we're supposed to be as a water company enforcing a 25% rule, it is a nice thing. It is a nice thing to see financially when people come up on the weekends, because they make up for the water that wasn't used during the weekend. But I sit there and I go, you just kind of constantly have to do this. Where are we? What are we doing? And like I said, the biggest thing is if people won't waste it, you know, then what they pay for it, they'll actually be able to use. But it's when it goes down the toilet, or it goes down a broken pipe in the house, or this or that, that's a waste that you can't get back. And there's a financial burden to that too. Just as a water company absorbs water losses on part of our deal, you know, 10% of us, water's free, right? It comes out of the sky. Well, 10% of our operations are basically, or 10% of the cost is just treating the water. The rest of it's the delivery and the maintenance of the system. So there's, and you could say it was employee-based, or you could say it's depreciation-based, it's equipment-based, it's all sorts of things based. And it's pretty much across the board with all water companies. 10% is in treatment. The rest of it is overhead and labor. You know, that's what has to happen to maintain the system. So when you tag a high price on the water, you're getting a little benefit, extra benefit to put more money in but it's not costing you that much more to treat the water. With our services, and the way it was set up was to pay for the infrastructure that we install, like you say. I do know that I live in Wall, and I wish I had a reservoir over there. I wish I had a security department, a roads program, something like this. We don't. So, Jane, did you have something? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I think that
Just a quick reminder, next month's forum will be on the fire district, and if you've got a few minutes to help with for the chairs, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.